Hi friends. I thought today we could talk a little bit about angels and in particular how they help us to be humans. And I mean human in the sense that we were created in the image and likeness of God, uh, and trying to live who God meant us to be. Angels can teach us something. Now, let's just concentrate really upon the archangels that we learn about in the scriptures. Michael and Gabriel and Raphael. Right? So Michael, his name in Hebrew means "who is my God?" Who is my God? So Michael recognizes who his God is. Like from ever since he's existed, we know that the angels are not eternal. That at some point God created them in eternity. But as long as he's existed, for the millions and billions of years that he's existed, he recognizes who his God is. And he recognizes that he is not God. And we see this in particular in the scriptures in the conflict between a powerful angel like Michael and another powerful angel like Lucifer, whose name means the light bearer. You know that Lucifer was the bearer of God's light. But at some point in Lucifer's created existence, he doesn't trust God. He suspects God. He doesn't have faith in God's plan for creation, for humanity, for everything. And ultimately where that leads him is down a very dark path as an angel. And he made the decision that he's not going to serve God, but rather he's going to take matters into his own hands. So he's going to be the light, not the bearer of God's light, but he's going to be the light. And ends up being that he's not the light at all. He's the lie. He is the one who leads us away from the light, who's God. But he was meant to be the light bearer. And so Michael is called upon in heaven to fight for heaven and to defend God. And he, with 2/3 of the angels, they decide who God is and that they are not God. And that they are going to serve God and God's will, even if they didn't understand it fully. Ultimately, where this led is that Lucifer is removed from heaven, right? And along with 1/3 of the angels. And now they've spent the remainder of their existence, and they will spend the remainder of their existence until the consummation of heaven and earth, tempting humanity away from God. And they were meant to glorify God. They were meant to point to God. They were meant to be creatures who assisted God in carrying out God's will. And a big part of God's will was that he created a creature made in his image and likeness, you and I, and with a freedom and a free will to be able to choose us to be with us and for us to be with him forever in heaven. And now they're the enemies of that. And I say that the angels have something to teach us, like Michael, because if an angel can be this, like Lucifer, then you and I can be this. You and I who we were actually created to glorify God. We were meant to serve God. I don't mean this in a disparaging way. But when we follow God, when we trust him, when we love him, when we let his plan be our plan, then we're actually happy and fulfilled and purposeful, and we live a meaningful life. But when, like Lucifer, we don't trust God and his will, and this can not just happen to us in a big way, but in an everyday way, then we actually become people who distract other people from God, who don't bring the light of God to others, but actually turns people away from the light of God. And we can do this every day and multiple times throughout each day. And the fact we do that. And so here Michael comes along and he says, I don't understand fully what God's plan is for humanity and how all this is going to work out, but I'm going to serve God. I'm going to trust him. I'm going to have faith in him. And I'm going to fight for him. And that's what we need to return to as Christians. We need to return to learning about how to be human from looking at people like Michael, the archangel. Here's another one, Gabriel. And Gabriel means the strength of God in Hebrew. And I find that curious too, because when we see Gabriel in both, when we see him in the scriptures, we mostly see him as a messenger of God. And so you would think that his name would mean messenger of God, but it's not. It's strength of God. So why? Okay, so remember that, for instance, one of the places we see Gabriel is when he comes and appears to Mary as a young girl and says, "Hail, full of grace, the Lord is with you," and gives the message that God wants to come into the world, to become fully human as fully God through Mary. But he has to wait for Mary's yes. And so Gabriel teaches Mary what God's intentions are and what God's proposal is for her, right? Well, that takes strength. It takes strength to be an ambassador of God to other people. So I get it now, why his name is Strength of God. And we have something to learn from him, because we have stopped as Christians, basically we've stopped as Christians in this secular society of being an ambassador of God to other people. We have bought into the lie that religion is a private affair and that we should not be speaking about our faith to other people. No, religion is not a private affair. In fact, it's a very personal thing. And we should be taking it personally. But it was never meant to be non-public. It was meant to be personal, deeply personal, in a personal experienced way. But then meant always to be public, where, like Gabriel, we go out into the lives of our children from day to day, our spouses and our friends and so many others. And we are his missionary. We are his emissary. We are his ambassador, sent by him in order to proclaim him to other people. And we've got to get back to that, because we are losing Christians because we are keeping our mouths shut. And we're losing people who God wants him to follow him, but we are not being his ambassadors like Gabriel was. And Raphael, it means healer of God. And we certainly see this, for instance, when Raphael comes to Tobit in the book of Tobit, and he heals Tobit's eyes and brings happiness and joy back to Tobit. But also, look what Raphael does for Tobias, Tobit's son, and also for Sarah, who is being called to marry Tobias. He heals Sarah's life, and he heals Tobias' fear of marrying her. And so much good comes to just one family, because one archangel, Raphael, is willing to carry out his identity, what he was created for, and that was to be a healer. And friends, all of us are called to be healers. And I think we don't realize how much power is available to us, for instance, through the sacraments. Not just for us to be healed by Christ, but to be agents of healing for the lives of other people. Like, when we are forgiven in the sacrament of reconciliation, we're also called to be forgivers. And when we forgive other people, guess what happens to their hearts? They're healed, right? When we receive Christ in the Eucharist and his life, guess what happens? We carry that Eucharistic presence out into the lives of others, and we are able to bring them back to life, to heal them through the Christ who dwells in us. And that's all the sacraments, But it's also just being in a basic, fundamental, ongoing, deeply abiding relationship with Jesus Christ and allowing him day by day to heal us in the many ways in which we need healed so that we can be agents of healing to other people. We have a lot to learn from the angels in general, and certainly Michael and Gabriel and Raphael about who God is and that we're not God. And we know who God is, and then to defend who God is to the world, and to fight for who God is, and to trust him, and to have faith in his plan, even when we don't understand it, right? And we're called to, like Gabriel, to be the strength of God by being ambassadors, emissaries, missionaries for him. We're certainly called to be healers too, by allowing Christ to heal us so that we can, from that healed experience, go out and heal the world. Until next time.